Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
Hello and welcome to our 7th batch expo of Startup Creasphere. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're live here from our Munich office, and to know where you guys are, it would be great if we kick off the event with you sharing where you currently are on the Hop-In platform under the chat box, so that we can know where you're all dialing in from. So let's see where you are before we kick it off. I know that we have some fellows from Pennsburg here and from Berlin and from Denmark, so please leave us some comments in the chat box. But before we start, my name is Friederike Rohr. I'm head of the Munich office and the director of the Startup Creasphere program, and it is an honor for me to welcome you here today. And we have a full packed agenda, and today is actually also the 3rd day of our winter summit, which has been happening on Tuesday, Wednesday, and today, actually, this is the final event, where we have been showcasing the tech from retail, health, and insurance, and also have shared our founder initiative as well. So it is great that we can now jump right into the digital healthcare scene. So this is actually the agenda of today's event. After my opening remarks, we will continue with a super interesting panel on the topic of best practices and pilot projects, where our corporate partners will share some of their insights and recommendations on how to work with startups, and also what the learnings are for our next program, and also to look back on our learnings, what we have achieved. And after that, we will start with the corporate introductions, first by Biotronik with the startup pitches to hear what they have been working on over the past 3 months. Then there is also the networking break for you all to exchange. Since we can see here already, we have Munich, Mannheim, Dubai, Berlin, but Kissingen, also Bavaria, here present. So for you all to meet, so to have some availability for networking. But we will get to that in a bit to explain you how it works best. After that, we have an interesting keynote as well, followed by the introduction of Novo Nordisk on how they are tackling the innovation journey within their company and their innovation garage, followed by Roche Diagnostics introduction and the Roche pitches, and finally with the Best Pitch Award, jumping into the final closing remarks. But also today we have to make some memories for the event, even virtually. We have Olivia with us, who will be live scribbling the event during the time, and in the break we will also show the status quo. So hi Olivia, thank you for joining us today again and for making this event with memories. As I said, we have Hop-In as a platform for this event, and it has many different functions. The first functions are based on networking. You can make appointments for later on with the network that is in the event. You can connect on LinkedIn, you can chat, you can also ask questions for the startup pitches. It's under Q&A, but you also have the poll function. If you want to be connected to the startups or to us or the corporate partners, we're happy to make connections here. So before we jump right into that, let's give you a little bit of an introduction to Startup Creasphere and what we actually do. So Startup Creasphere is part of Plug and Play, and what we do here are 2 different things. One is we are a venture capital fund focusing on early stage investments in different verticals, including healthcare, anything from pre-seed to Series A. And on the other side, we are a corporate innovation support. So we do run these programs like this one today, and we also support our corporate partners with writing trend reports and really sharing our expertise here, doing deal flows for them, and also having workshops to help them in their innovation journey and to help them how to work with startups. So now today, I would like to give a special welcome to our dear partners from the Startup Creasphere platform, Roche Diagnostics, Novo Nordisk, Biotronik, and Accenture. Hello to the different locations from Denmark, Berlin, Pennsburg, Switzerland. It's great to have you with us here today. Thank you for your trust and our expertise in the innovation journey, for sharing constantly what you're curious about with technologies and services, and that we can support you with the best startups that we are also talking about today. This is actually our footprint of the healthcare vertical of Plug and Play. You see our global footprint is growing continuously. So with Startup Creasphere, we are present in Silicon Valley, Munich, and Singapore. And within the overall healthcare, we are also present in Kyoto, in Shanghai, in Abu Dhabi, in Sao Paulo. So really all across the globe. And this is also where we are having our expertise globally with the startups. And what we have been doing here in Munich with Startup Creasphere, we are already in our 7th batch. So for 3.5 years, we have been working with over 7 partners together with over 80 pilot projects to really innovate, implement, white label, invest, and try out to really build the technologies of tomorrow through events, matchmakings, and making meaningful relationships. And how do these startups and programs actually come all together? It is actually a long 4-month iterative process between our corporate partners and our dear ventures team here on the ground, where they look for the right startups for the business unit's needs from our corporate partners to either, as I said, white label, implement, or just try a POC. And this program actually is working on this. So all the startups that get invited are coming through this iterative process, and really through a long-term selection process, get invited to join the program and to really work on projects together with our corporate partners. So dear startups of batch 7, you were invited to be part of that. And I'm sure you will show us great things today that you have achieved throughout the past month. Share your experience with us. And also after the program of today, that we are celebrating continuous successful journeys together. So startups, it's all about you. So thank you very much. And it's quite an international cohort here again. So welcome to all the different time zones and the locations here. Thank you for dialing in early from the US as well. The topics from Lab of the Future, data analytics. It is really a variety of topics that we were talking about today. And it is great to see the different projects that we have in place. So with that being said, these projects together come to the conclusion of our mission to drive and to transform healthcare together and to build out the future of healthcare for tomorrow. So with that, let's jump right into it. And we have a little reminder of a memory of what we have achieved in this program. And there's a little video that we would like to share for some meaningful memories. Thank you for listening. And talking about an opportunity to learn, I would like to hand over the word to my dear colleague, Christina, to moderate the panel on pilot best practices. Over to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Friederike, and great being on stage. I just ran from the tech team to being live on stage with all of you, excited for this. So first of all, I'm impressed by the feedback from the current pilot owners and startups from this batch. We will continue to talk about pilot projects and collaborations between our corporate partners and startups. And for the next section, a panel discussion on pilot best practices, on corporate startup collaboration. I welcome on stage 3 alumni pilot owners from our corporate partners, Roche, Novo Nordisk, and Biotronik. So welcome on stage Eva Schitter, Peter Damm-Madsen, and Sebastian Körner.
Good afternoon.
That was quick. Great to see all of you. Perfect.
Good afternoon.
Great to have all of you with me. You all know me, but for our audience, I'm Christina Brandmeier, Senior Program Manager of Startup Creasphere. And in the previous video, we've already seen what Startup Creasphere is about. It's really about connecting our corporate partners with the right startups for successful collaborations. So over the past 3 years, we had lots of learnings, we had lots of real-life examples, and I'm excited to speak to the 3 panelists today. about their experience of working with our startups. They are all in ongoing projects with our alumni startups. So let's start with a quick introduction round. I would hand it around and everyone in the quick intro in one sentence, please share why is working with startups beneficial for you. Let's get started with Eva.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, my name is Eva Skitter. I work as a digital health innovation manager at Roche, where I help our cardiac-focused product community to bring in external innovation by collaborating with the startups. And for me, the work with startup is great because it really challenges our thinking and ways of working and does help to speed up the innovation processes.
Perfect. Yeah, bringing in external knowledge is always something very key. Next up, Sebastian.
Hi there, good afternoon again. My name is Sebastian Körner. I work at Biotronik Global Headquarters here in Berlin in the Cardiac Rhythm Management Strategy Department. My roles generally revolve around partnering and innovation management. In a nutshell, for us, it's that we don't have the expertise to address the changes that are happening in our industry. It's kind of key for us to access external partners, for us to be able to access that know-how and create something together with these partners. So it's kind of crucial for us to externalize.
Thank you, Sebastian. And lastly, Peter, why is working with startups beneficial for you and Novo Nordisk?
Well, thank you, Christina. I'm Peter Madsen, as you said, and I'm heading up digital innovation and partnerships in our obesity franchise, focusing on the commercial part of our business. We don't know what we don't know, and as my colleagues here say, digital is moving really, really fast, and it's not at the core of the kind of business we are. So we need the collaboration, the insight, and the ideas that startups and digital fast-moving partners can bring to our business.
Thank you so much. Perfect. So let's dive right into the panel. So in the next 15 minutes, we want to really address the different phases in the collaboration with the startup and give, especially to our corporate audience, some highlights how to make such collaboration successful. So let's start really at the beginning, at the startup selection phase. Sebastian, which criteria were important for you when selecting the right startup?
Yeah, so our goal, as my previous statement kind of hinted at, is to get as close as possible to operationalize the results that we work on in the 3 months with Creasphere. So for us, a key criteria on the hard side is for the startup to preferably already have a product available that we can base our work on. I.e. that means, is it already technically, clinically validated? And ideally, is it something that maybe already is market available that we can base our work on? On the softer side of things, very important criteria for us is a good chemistry, and also to recognize or realize that there is motivation behind the startup to really help us achieve something together in the 3 months. And the Creasphere process, even though it is all virtual now in these times, it really does help to get that done, get those softer criteria like motivation and good chemistry sorted out in a very short amount of time right at the beginning of the project. So that's kind of what we choose our selection criteria on.
Thank you for sharing. I believe our 2 other corporate partners or the 2 panelists would agree that it's not only the hard facts of a startup, but also the team is important, and it's really a multitude of factors that play into the selection of a startup. For you, Peter, how was the selection phase? How did Plug and Play maybe support you in this?
Looking back before the interaction with Plug and Play, being a pharma player and the focus we have, it takes time to identify, assess, and even pilot and get the learnings from various types of partnerships. So definitely a strong acceleration of the process in the partnership with Plug and Play, both in the scouting, the assessment, and also the selection process. Of course, also with the risk of getting hyped by the excitement of the idea, the excitement of the team, and keeping a keen focus on who are we doing this for? What are the core objectives with what we're doing? And how do we bring it to fruition for our patients, but of course also for us as well as for the partner.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a process. So when working with startups, you really need to involve lots of stakeholders internally at the company, and really changing also maybe the cultural mindsets. And sometimes working with startups is really something new. So it's good to hear that we were able to support you well, and you got the project started well. Next up, Eva. So you work with Lark Health, a Series D level startup. So they are focused actually on chronic disease management. What is special about working with a very advanced startup? How did you start the collaboration?
If I have to nail it down to really the key factors, I think came down to 3 things that stood out for me when collaborating with such a late stage startup. And it was really having the commitment in mind that the startup Creasphere accelerates the collaboration scoping, but if that's successful, that there is really a vision to also have a follow-up opportunity. I think for me, the second part was right from the start, the startup, so Lark, as well as the Roche team, really took off their corporate and startup hats and approached the topic really at eye level. Mm-hmm. And the third thing for me was, while we were getting a better sense of the startup capabilities, also the startup got a sense of what Roche can bring to the table when it comes to medical expertise or market access expertise. And that was really, really well fitting together.
Perfect. Great to hear. Maybe moving directly to the next phase, so really the joint collaboration during the program. Now we want to speak about success factors during the collaboration, maybe how you manage challenges. And Eva, you mentioned already that you had a great vision of the collaboration with Lark Health. How did maybe the scope of the pilot develop over time, and also the collaboration? How did it continue?
Yeah, in the beginning, we were lucky that the startup had also already a similar focus topic in mind and what we were looking for. But while we were jointly diving into the topic and really fleshing out what it means to find a solution for this focus topic, it turned out that a deviating solution from what we had in mind at the beginning was far more beneficial for more people and patients in the end. So after the whole startup Creasphere process, we had a good vision in mind how a collaboration could look like, and now we are in the process of exploring it further. But it was really this being open to changes in the process. Mm-hmm.
Sounds great. And that's also what Startup Creasphere is about. It's like an exploration phase. You are not fixed to a collaboration. It's a 3 months exploration. You hand in your challenge, and we look for the right startup for you, and you just test it out. And if it's maybe changing over time, that's really cool, right? So you don't have to stay in this scope as defined for the whole project, but you can really work together, discuss, and see where it goes over time. I think same happened to you, Sebastian, right? Your startup, Capsico Health, was also very proactive in the whole project and also in developing the scope of the pilot. Maybe you want to tell us more.
Absolutely, yes. So with Capsico, we worked on something that is very dear to our heart right now. It's something around value-based healthcare. It's something that we realized we need to address in our industry. And we knew what we wanted to achieve with Capsico, a tremendous expertise within Capsico around that topic. But we realized right at the beginning, after choosing them, they had so much more to offer. So they suggested themselves proactively, just like Eva mentioned, we could do that much more within these 3 months, suggesting things like development of white papers to stir up some interest in the market around the product that we would like to put into the market potentially. So they suggested lots of interesting stuff that was able to be achieved within the 3 months as part of the scope. But yes, there was a little bit of scope creep, but in a positive sense, in a good way, realizing that there was so much more behind Capsico than we initially thought there was after they pitched and after we talked to them and selected them. So that was a great experience, and that's something that we really value with the Creasphere program, to open up these startups that we would have never found by ourselves. So that was an amazing experience.
Perfect, thank you. And we're also closely in touch with the startup Capsico Health. We want to publish the first case studies around what they're doing with you. And yeah, really excited for that.
Yes.
Peter, like Eva and Sebastian, you are in continuous dialogue with the startup. And you also have a really great vision in the obesity space together with the startup. What were maybe some of the challenges or internal learnings that you had throughout the program?
Yeah, the good thing is that you always learn a lot, and it's always so easy to be smart in hindsight, right? But I'm fortunate that I have a really, really strong team supporting me in our business innovation garage. That's also part of the program later today. And I think we really managed to move forward fast, and even I think it was a strength and a weakness with our partner Creasphere, that they had a proven platform in place. They had a lot of tools and ideas in place. So one of the challenges was really to keep the scope narrow and start small, and really hone in on the key needs that we wanted to solve for, and then ensure scalability of the solution. One thing is piloting and testing and ensuring that things work, but how do you scale it in real life afterwards? Then on an internal note, back to my previous comments, you get caught up in the idea and the excitement, and then along the way you have to backtrack and ensure that all the right people from a legal compliance and safety perspective is involved, that the business model is robust and driven by the right parameters, and also that once you have something you believe is ready for market, that you have the right markets on board and fully buying into this offering, so that you can pilot it. And some of these things we're still struggling with, but Creasphere is a patient and persistent partner, so I'm sure we'll eventually find a way.
Sounds good. I mean, there are always some challenges in the process, and different stakeholders that you need to involve. And it's good that you're taking like a step-by-step progress and are closely in touch with the startup. And I think the most important part is really to have a big vision and to have the same joint expectations on the collaboration. And then you just need to find a way to make it work really successfully, built on a well-working business model, of course. So yeah, fingers crossed, and keep us updated on the progress.
Absolutely.
Overall, I think lastly, our audience has lots of takeaways already, but we're approaching the end of the panel already, I think, looking at the time. So to wrap up the session nicely, I would hand it around for a last summary statement, really to mention the key best practice that you had during the time of working with the startup. So what are your 2 cents? What is something you want to share with our audience when it comes to working with startups? Let's start with Peter again. So based on the learnings you mentioned, you are still very excited. So what are key facts for doing such a project again for you?
Be absolutely crisp on what the need is from a corporate perspective. What is it really we want to achieve with the partner, and how can the partner help us and complement us in a good way, and maintain a clear direction for that. Then be really crisp on the assessment framework, and also push the plug and play organization, and in my case, my internal organization, on what are we really looking for, what is truly making this a real fit. And then finally, make sure you orchestrate your full organization around you and bring them with you, from compliance, legal, and safety to those executing in the field in the markets that are relevant. Make sure you have everybody on board from the get-go. That will smoothen things and make things come to fruition much faster and hopefully much better.
Wow, that were lots of facts already. So from involving the right stakeholders, from being really patient or really focused on the startup selection phase, over to keeping the project going. Thanks for sharing. Sebastian, you also mentioned the startup selection phase as a very, very important phase. So why is it the most important for you, and what's your key best practice during the phase?
Yes, so right at the beginning, the scoping, we talked about scope creep, but in a good way with Capsico, but it's very important for us, this first phase when you're scoping out the deliverable and the mode of cooperation, how do you interact with each other? For us, it's important at the end of the 3 months to really determine whether we want to go further with the startup. So like Peter said, define the assessment criteria at the end of the 3 months is very important for us in order for us to be able at the end of the 3 months to make a decision. Also, we have a product that we want to really operationalize as much as we can, but we also want to make a decision on whether do we want to go further with that startup. So that is important to pan out right at the beginning of the project so everybody knows about this, and that's also the motivation for the startup to see we are going to make a decision at the end of 3 months. You can rest assured that this is not going to end, and we are hoping to move on with you, but here are the assessment criteria for us to be able to make that decision in the right way. Also, right at the beginning, it's an important opportunity to build rapport, to build trust between us. So those first sessions are crucial, especially again in those times where we meet virtually all of the time, where we work across plenty of different time zones to the east and to the west. It's important to use those first few sessions to really build rapport and to build trust. That's what I would say as the most crucial phase in those 3 months.
Thanks for sharing. Trust is a good word, and we're really looking forward to the times when we can do the kickoff phase and the first meetings in person again. That really helps for the relationship in the pilot projects and to build trust, as you said, to make the project successful. And also, Plug and Play is supporting a lot in the first phases. So, I think that's another factor. We act kind of like an intermediator between the pilot teams and the startups to ensure the success. So lastly, Eva, to wrap the session up with you, as we also got started with you, what is one thing you hope the audience can take away from this session?
I will be very crisp. I could completely sign off what Peter and Sebastian said and would say you really need to know why you want to collaborate with a certain startup while being very open and curious when it comes to the solution you jointly co-create with a lot of trust involved.
Wonderful. That's a good wrap-up statement. Thanks for that. And with that, thank you to all of you for joining us today, for really being so open, for sharing why and how your corporate is approaching startups and how maybe the Startup Creasphere program is setting the right framework around that. Hopefully we will meet in person soon. And with that, I would say thank you so much, Eva, Sebastian, and Peter. And with that, back to the studio to Fabian and Max.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fabian and Max. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Christina, for organizing and leading such a great panel. And of course, also from our side, a special thanks to each and every one of the pilot owners involved in the panel, but also beyond that, involved in our programs and sharing their insights, their own experiences, their knowledge, and also their learnings in the end. And maybe with this, also quickly pitching in here, Fabian, what was your most important key takeaway from that discussion?
I think it's kind of difficult to summarize because there has been so much information in it. But my key takeaway is to always remain crisp in like what you want to accomplish, but never to lose sight of maybe the other side has also some knowledge and you can learn on the process and being flexible to that extent.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's super important to actually have the project scope, to have certain milestones in place, to have goals in place, but also what Sebastian has said in the panel, to be bold about failing early in order to establish also a long-term vision, if possible. And with that, we would, of course, also like the opportunity to just also give a brief introduction on our side. I'm here with my colleague, Fabian Scheugenpflug, as myself as well, Maximilian Scholz, and we are representing the ventures team on the ground, supporting our dear corporate partners and actually finding the right startups, also for, but also beyond the batch, as well as also fostering our own investment narrative in the European hemisphere. So very happy to have you all. Of course, a huge welcome to the broader audience here today with us. And with that, we already come to the heart of our program and also the heart of today's event, which are, of course, our individual corporate partners, but also more specifically the individual pilot owner units, as well as also the startups involved in the pilot showcases. So without further ado, I'm very happy to announce and welcome our first corporate partner here today, Biotronik, a great player in the medtech space from Berlin. And with them, Dr. Volker Lang, who's the Senior Vice President for Cardiac Rhythm Management in R&D for Biotronik. So very happy to have you here, Volker, as always, and already excited for your presentation at hand.
Yeah, hello. A warm welcome from Berlin. Do you see my screen already?
Yes,
Perfect.
now we can
So
see it,
this
yes.
works out. Even you see my mouse, that's good. So warm welcome from Berlin. A little bit rainy today, so even more excited to be in the home office and being part of such a great program like what we do today, the Batch 7 Expo Day. A short recap, Biotronik was new to the program. We started in January 2021 after a short pilot with startup Creasphere. And we finished batch 6 very successful. We selected 3 startups, and with 2 of the 3 startups, we are still continue our work. So from this perspective, a more than 60% success rate. And now we are in batch 7. Batch 7 is everybody. We started in October. Out of 73 startups, we were able to select really 3 amazing partners, EVOCAL, Toloka, and mhealth. And the selection process, as already discussed in the panel a couple of minutes ago, were very helpful because I believe there was a really good match and we get really positive results. In a few 2.5 or 3 months effort already in this initial process. What is now the next step for Biotronik? Biotronik will concentrate to continue the work with the 5 startups we started in 2021. So this is why we skip batch 8 to consolidate our work for the really successful batch 6 and batch 7. And then I will see you again in batch 9 in the second half of 22 for yet another amazing projects. But let's first go and look what did we do with batch 7. So first of all, I said we did a lot of progress. So for instance, one of the, and we all see the projects in a second, we already integrate one of them in our health platform technology. With the second one, Toloka, our physicians already annotated more than 8,300 events with a tool, which Toloka provided us really fast, and it's already in a productive mode, so to speak. And we did our first landing page together with mhealth, and therefore we have a prototype already of a new patient education website, and also this was done much faster than with all of the other processes. So again, a very successful start. Our learnings from the last batch were reiterated. It's with external partners, we find a close cooperation, not only with them, but also within Biotronik. Biotronik is already large enough that sometimes there are silos. And with the external partners, we also often see we overcome the internal silos as well as the external silos. We had a great and agile support from legal and purchasing, also groups which are usually more bureaucratic. They knew the timeline, they knew we had only 3 months time for the pilots, and were really fast. And again, it was a really high learning curve, and Sebastian already told that we learned a lot again from the startups. Every time we're doing a short review, how did we do? How does our participants rate our program, our participation in the program? And this time we had 100% evaluation as being good or very good. and 100% of the participants would actually recommend the program internally and externally, and this is up from 85, respectively 71%. So you see here also within Biotronik, there's a learning curve how to work together with the startups, and it's really a good way and very insightful. At this point in time, I would like to thank all the people, external people and Biotronik personnel who did this really good work for batch 7. And I'd like to highlight our this time first all female leadership of the 3 programs. So thank you very much for showing that you as a female leader did fabulous work in engineering and digitalization. Thank you very much, team. Now let's go to the last slide. Sorry, even if I go out of time a little bit. I just want to again show you our environment. We have the patient and we have our implants, the implants transmitting data. And then the data is analyzed in the home monitoring service center, central database, and transmitted to physicians or electronic health record, and so on and so forth. And as always, we want to enrich our environment with new ideas. So for instance, from left, we're using a new sensor, risk stratification via a smartphone microphone. So we're adding additional functions to our various sensor plays in our map. And the second part is with my mHealth, we are adding interactive patient education to the smartphone of the patient. So we learn more about the patient on one side. On the second side, the patient can change his lifestyle and therefore can improve the therapy with our implants much better. Last but not least, for our automatic analysis, was depicted by the brain here with artificial intelligence, you need usually a lot of learning sets. And we found a way together with Toloka to do a crowdsourcing annotation of ECGs, and we were very successful with that. So again, you see a good structured approach within the overall strategy and a good matchmaking with the startup Creasphere program together with really cool and really innovative startups brought us really to a next level for those 3 areas of our map. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to explain our program a little bit. I'm looking forward to the presentation of the startups.
Thank you, Volker, for that great presentation. Of course, it's truly amazing what you guys are doing in terms of also aligning the grand vision that you have in terms of business evolution, in terms of changing the culture and approaching bold and disruptive topics also together with those startups. So thank you for that. And of course, also we have a lot of gratefulness for the entire Biotronik team that is really our sparring partner here and actively shaping the future healthcare market of tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
That, of course, Volker, of course. With that, we will now like to take the opportunity to quickly remind you on a couple of features that we have in place today. First of all, we have the individual startup booth on the Hop-In platform where you can approach the founding teams, the entrepreneurs of those startups directly, also beyond the pitch, so to say, and also in the networking sessions. Then we also have the polls in place after each and every one of the startup pitches where you can select to follow up with the particular company if you like. And of course, Fabian and I, we are more than happy to also facilitate that contact and make that meeting happening. Lastly, we encourage you, of course, also to stay active and engaged during the session today, to ask all the questions that you might have in the chat function of the Hop-In platform and directly to the founders of today. With that being said, and without further ado, we are now coming to the first pilot showcase of today. For this, we are exploring together with Biotronik the area of smart data annotation. Why is smart data annotation so important? We all know that AI projects and R&D efforts are very much vital to the future stance and competitiveness of today's companies. With that being said, those AI engines heavily rely also on data input and data quality. So the process of structuring, streamlining, and also leveraging the data involved in those AI projects is very much a success factor. Toloka AI is a company that is addressing that challenge and helping in the process of data labeling. So I'm very happy to have them here together with Paul. The last time, Paul, you dialed in from the airport, we all remember that from the kickoff event. So I can say with great pleasure together with Fabian that we're happy to have you here. We're ready to onboard with you. And before you take us away with your pitch, we will have a short video reflecting on the past 3 months together.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon. I'm not in the airport today, but I am dialing in from a hotel, so a glamorous lifestyle, but pleased to meet you all. So we've had a very successful pilot with Biotronik. We've iteratively developed the UX, which is for annotating ECGs with them. And I'll just give an overview about Toloka, our history, and what our capabilities are. So Toloka, this is the brief overview in terms of the sections within the presentation. What is the power of Toloka and what makes us different from anybody else? Well, Toloka essentially has existed over 14 years, and it's the underlying...
Paul, quickly before you kick it off, maybe you can make it full screen, the presentation. That would be great. The presentation mode.
You can't see it full mode your side.
Right now we don't see it in a full mode, right?
I've got it presentations. I've got it full screen here.
If not, you can continue. I think it's just a minor thing. So go ahead, please, Paul.
Yeah, showing, and I've got it on full screen here, but
that's fine. That's fine. Let's continue like that. We can see the slide.
Okay. So Toloka has been Toloka's existed for 14 years, and we're basically the underlying technology which has built every vertical within Yandex itself. So it's been proven for data collection for e-commerce and building AI models there, driverless cars, food delivery service, maps, and crowd moderation. So not only do we collect and annotate data, but we've actually applied it in multiple use cases across every single vertical. And that technology has been spun out of Yandex in the past 2 years. So we will be a separate business entity this year. And we've worked on a couple of medical projects as well as Biotronik. The platform's highly customizable. So in terms of meeting clients' needs for data annotation, individuals can select language, age, gender, which specific device they need, and potentially subject matter experts depending on which sector they're in. We then have onboarding and training for those individual Tolokas, as we call them, who annotate the data. And then we've got high levels of quality control embedded within that to ensure that we achieve very high level quality data. And then within that, there's MI and real-time dashboards so that those that are setting the tests can see progress and quality of the tasks as they're progressing. So as a platform, we work with many leading companies across the world. We deliver 1,500 active projects every day. We have a dedicated crowd of over 200,000 people that annotate and collect data. We cover over 40 languages, and we're now present in over 100 countries. So we can deliver 24/7 annotated data, and we're typically 5 times more cost effective than our competitors. This just gives an overview in terms of all the different sectors that we've actively delivered data in and work with our clients to create solutions in each of those verticals. So why data? Well, hardware and algorithms are typically becoming commoditized in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and the biggest gains that companies can make is actually about volume and quality of annotated data, and that's really where Toloka makes a big difference. And many of the clients that we're working with internationally have noticed a significant difference and an improvement in either recommendation engines, time to market, based on the quality and speed of data that we're able to deliver within Toloka. In terms of data quality, essentially it's subject to diminishing returns. So when people can achieve 80 to 85%, to squeeze out an extra 5 to 10% increased in label quality requires exponential efforts to get that additional 10%. Typically, Toloka, based on the vast experience that we've gained over 14 years, can deliver annotated data with typically 90 to 100% accuracy in annotation, which is what separates us from our peers. We currently have 2 solutions for customers. One is a ready-to-go solution that's available quickly, and the requirements for customers at that stage are to decompose the task and write the instructions. That's quickest time to value. And then we have Toloka's customizable solution, which is platform access, and generally that's used by engineers, and there's a high level of adaptability there in terms of maximizing the quality and specificity of the annotated data. This just gives you an overview of the typical 6 steps associated with building the pipeline for labeling data, and our ready-to-go solutions just require steps 1 and 2. So typically we can turn around annotated data within a few days once people have accepted our public offer online. For those engineers that are working in larger e-commerce businesses, they basically want full control of the sensitivity and annotation. So they will typically undertake all 6 steps here with Toloka support. And then this just gives some visualizations associated with what are the ready-to-go solutions and use cases that we have. So image and text classification for training, computer vision models. Typically, the leading players globally use us for e-commerce. Image annotation with bounding boxes is a popular task associated with autonomous vehicles, and image classification. So many online businesses that want to enrich their catalog will use our crowd to annotate significant volumes of data given.
So Paul, sorry to interrupt you here. We're slightly over time, so I unfortunately need to cut you a little bit short to have a little bit of a moment for a question. But just for everyone in the audience, since we had some difficulties with the slides here, you will also find Toloka slides at their booth. So really also take advantage of that to also see visually to what Paul has already informed you about and pitched. So Paul, one question quickly. Do you have any performance metrics on how much your platform optimizes the average time and cost spent on data annotation projects?
Yeah, so we have a lot of benchmark data based on all the projects that our customers have run on the platform, so we can give insights in terms of where we think optimal pricing would be to complete those tasks. Or if it's the platform solution, then the customer sets the price for the task themselves, and depending on where that's set, will determine the throughput. Our ready-to-go models are a fixed price, so that's very clear in terms of the pricing set for those pre-built pipelines.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul. And also congratulations on that massively successful pilot project together with Biotronik.
Thank you very much.
If you want to get in touch with him, we've launched a poll on the right-hand side. Please indicate that. and we make all the introductions accordingly. Of course, Paul is also here to mingle a little bit afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul, also from my side. So with that, we have concluded the first pilot showcase of today, and we're more than happy to now come to the second exciting pilot project by our partner, Biotronik. For that, we are exploring the area of smart patient education. So why is this very much important? We all know that the healthcare system is becoming more and more decentralized, digitized. We also see that healthcare systems are changing from a reactive approach to a rather preventative stance. And this is also something that, of course, takes into consideration greater patient ownership on their own health status, also patient empowerment. So we have to recognize the fact that effective patient education is becoming one of the decisive success factors of positive health outcomes. A company that is really pioneering in that area is the company mhealth, and how they are doing that together with our partner Biotronik. Great, Simon. So if you can now share your presentation and lead us away with some more insights on mhealth, that would be really, really appreciated.
Yeah, so hopefully we have success in getting this presentation up and running. So hopefully we can get on to full screen.
Looks already
okay, so
yes, we have the full screen there. Perfect.
Fantastic. That's a good start. So mhealth is a digital therapeutics company, and digital therapeutics is quite a new field. Digital therapeutics deliver mobile health applications to patients that have got the highest quality of evidence behind them at a randomized controlled trial level to improve patients' outcomes, and also to reduce the cost and healthcare utilization. On this platform here, you can see on the left are patients entering their daily data, and on the right there's a physician remote patient monitoring platform. But the secret sauce really is in the middle here, as we aggregate data for a number of sources such as Bluetooth medical devices, atmospherics, electronic healthcare records, and we also input nationally approved guidelines into this to deliver a completely individualized experience for patients. So as Harry said, we're based in the UK on the sunny seaside coast of Bournemouth. We've been going for about 5 years now in the digital therapeutics field. Initially, we started building therapeutics for a condition known as COPD, but branched out into 5 different conditions now, covering heart disease, type 1, type 2 diabetes, and asthma as well. We deliver a combination of patient education, but also a number of interventions as well have been proven at randomized control trial level to improve patients' outcomes. So it's not just patients' education for patients' education's sake. Patient education has been proven to improve outcomes, reduce healthcare utilization, and reduce admissions and readmissions. We've now got 65,000 users here in the UK, and the patient space is really actively engaged. In the last 12 months, we've delivered 275,000 rehab and educational sessions. We've now got an EU-wide implementation of our cardiac rehabilitation program that's starting now. We've got COPD in Auckland, and for the majority of this presentation, I'll be concentrating on our plans for a MyCOPD launch in the United States in April of this year. So as part of this Biotronik Creasphere project, we were selected from a group of 25 startups to help Patient Education Challenge. And over the last 3 months, we've created a brand new prototype website that can support patient education before and after device insertion. And the prototype delivers a range of novel content and some existing MyHeart interventions and education, such as exercise programs and full cardiac rehab programs too. And discussions are currently ongoing about the continuation of the pilot and the long-term commercial relationship. But I'd like to talk about our opportunity for mhealth in the States. And if there's any investors listening, we're raising $30 million this year to enter the US market and make mhealth a success out there too. So we have one of the best opportunities in the entire healthcare market to save lives, reduce payer costs, and deliver a significant return on investment. So I'm going to concentrate on what would pulmonary rehab look like if we delivered this in the States using a digital therapeutic. Well, pulmonary rehabilitation is designed to reduce life-altering symptoms like shortness of breath, but there are major problems with its delivery, and the legacy model must change. Currently, pulmonary rehab is delivered as an outpatient program with poor coverage. It's extremely expensive to deliver. Classroom education is delivered on all aspects of disease treatment, And then there are exercise classes to strengthen the fitness of the lungs and the muscles. But it's not just about exercise. This actually improves mortality for people admitted with this condition to hospital. But current service models are failing individual patients. On the left-hand side there, you'll see a quote from the Journal of American Medicine that if pulmonary rehabilitation was a drug, it would be a blockbuster. Well, we've packaged pulmonary rehabilitation into a digital therapeutic. We've proven our digital therapeutic is as good as delivering outpatient programs. So we feel MyCOPD has real potential to be a blockbuster in the United States. So current guidelines for pulmonary rehab that it has to be delivered within 3 to 6 weeks of admission, and this reduces 80% of readmissions. But only about 1.9% of Americans are receiving pulmonary rehab within 6 months. So 98% of that population are failing to receive this really great intervention at the time they need it. And this delivers a significant change in mortality, as patients who have had pulmonary rehabilitation around the time of admission have a 300% reduction in death. So 20% of patients admitted with acute exacerbations of COPD die within 1 year, but those that receive acute interventions with pulmonary rehabilitation, that's the mortality rate drops to 7.3%. So why doesn't anyone receive this care? Well, it requires patients to travel, it requires investment in facilities and physician investment, and it requires adequate condition reimbursement from the payer to make that work. This year, mhealth is driven to make MyCOPD the next US blockbuster prescription medication. Because we have a solution to increase accessibility of pulmonary rehab in the US from 3% to 100%, because almost everyone has a phone. We can deliver automated 6-week graduated rehab courses with the same outcomes as face-to-face classes. We've proven through randomized trials to reduce admission readmissions, and actually our therapeutic delivery of device errors that are present in more than 70% of patients. So what's the financial opportunity for MyCOPD in the US? Well, there are 8 million people in the US who are eligible for pulmonary rehabilitation. These 8 million people cost about $344 more per year to taxpayers than those that don't receive pulmonary rehab. So if we had 100% market penetration, this equals an opportunity of $2.7 billion per year. Now, if we just charged $68 for MyCOPD, the total addressable market for MyCOPD in the States is $500 million per year. But we would have to go through the FDA. We need to register software as a medical device and get approved by CMS. But there's a brand new opportunity on the horizon now for mhealth, because reimbursement codes are now available for respiratory digital therapeutics in the States through respiratory therapeutics monitoring codes. So physician codes have now been established for payment to use qualified digital therapeutics. So our plan is to go to physicians' offices and scale our digital therapeutics that way. So we're launching in the US with a position of strength. 8 million people with COPD require pulmonary rehab, but only 3% currently do so. We will work with insurers, payers, and providers to scale MyCOPD to millions of patients. The ROI has already been established here in the UK, and there are now reimbursement codes through CMS for us to be able to access immediately in 22. So we are raising £30 million this year to invest in accelerating the commercialization of the product, obtain FDA marketing and CMS authorization with Foley HOAG, and create American-centric versions of MyCOPD and our other digital therapeutics. We've definitely got a team to do this. We've taken on board a brand new Chief Commercial Officer, Joel Sangerman. Many people at this conference may know him. He was the Chief Commercial Officer at Click Therapeutics, and he's going to be driving our US strategy and investment strategy over the next few months. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Simon, for that very insightful presentation. Of course, we already have the first questions by the audience rolling and pouring in. So one of the questions that was asked in the beginning was, where do you see the biggest shortcomings, but also potentials for established players from the medtech, pharma, and healthcare provider field when it comes to patient education, of course?
Yeah, I think patient education needs to be individualized for the particular patient. So here at mhealth, we do something very different than other patient education companies. So through a patient registration process, we can understand the exact phenotype of that patient and deliver a very targeted educational content for that patient according to the severity of their disease, their admissions and readmissions and the treatment they're on. The biggest barriers at the moment are reimbursement for companies like ourselves, but those opportunities are opening up all the time. Obviously, we've now got CMS reimbursements in the States, we've got DIGA in Germany, and new reimbursement happening at vehicles in France as well. The UK is a bit of a laggard at the moment, which is why we're accelerating our internationalization opportunities now.
Well, Simon, first of all, fingers crossed for those developments from a regulatory perspective that your solution will be like easing into those markets very soon. One more question that just came up is, how do you actually achieve greater patient engagement towards educational content and the application itself?
I think you need a very user-friendly application. I think we can overcomplicate patient education. Most of our patients with long-term conditions have a reading age of between 8 and 12 years of age, which is why we're really successful in delivering something that patients can understand. And very quickly, patients see an improvement in their symptoms as well, because a number of digital therapeutic tools are embedded within our apps that improve their symptoms, reduce their exacerbations, and improve their overall quality of life. So it's that biofeedback, really, I think, that gets the stickiness. We get around about 80% of people activating our apps once they receive an email registration process, which is really high. And about 60% of them are still using the application at 12 months.
Very impressive.
Thank you, Simon, for answering also all those questions and also for the audience in staying so engaged. Really love that. And with that, Simon, of course, you're there also in the networking breaks and in the virtual startup booth. So everyone feel free to also follow up with Simon here as well. Thank you, Simon. So without further ado, we are now coming to the third and final pilot showcase project of our partner Biotronik. Super excited about this field, the field of voice analytics. So really leveraging the power of voice in order to analyze, understand, and detect the health status of the individual patient. And how the founder, Philipp Mertes, is doing that together with Biotronik when it comes to cardiovascular risks and cardiovascular patients. We now have the pleasure to listen into his presentation.
All right, I guess I'm on. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I'm delighted to be part of the Startup Creasphere program and explain you today what we're about to do and what we've been working on with Biotronik, an excellent partner. My name is Philipp Mertes. I'm the CEO.
Philipp, right? Sorry to interrupt you here, but it's also not on the full screen on the presentation mode.
You're not on the presentation mode. All right, give me a second.
I will give you direct feedback on it.
I think it might be a bug, Philipp. Maybe you can just click on the icons like in that screen and you can just click through the icons.
All right, good, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I will present today what we have accomplished with Biotronik together. I want to invite you to join me on a journey. It's the journey of unlocking the human voice as a biomarker for health. And that's a journey that we're on with EVOCAL Health. But not just we alone. We are here on this project with Biotronik together, and we are happy to have a great partner here.
Sorry, once again, I think the screen is frozen again. Maybe don't go into the full screen mode. Just stay on like the interface where you can actually create that that interface and click through
the slides.
Click through the
slides.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we can fix that. No problem here. Yeah, we're unlocking the human voice as a biomarker for health, and we teamed up with Biotronik and the excellent team behind. You might ask yourself, why is the human voice such a powerful biomarker? We firmly believe that vocal biomarkers are a brand new and patient-centric way to measure our health every day. And what we have done with EVOCAL Health is we have developed a platform technology that enables us to collect, monitor, and analyze patient voice data within less than 20 seconds. We seek for 150 specific voice parameters that are directly linked to respiratory, cardiovascular, and neurodegenerative diseases. We are a CE-certified medical software device, and the big value proposition for medical device manufacturers like Biotronik is that we deliver precise information about a patient's disease progression using only the human voice and the smartphone, which can then be applied in decentralized clinical trials, remote patient monitoring, and patient self-management. And the advantages are obvious. We deliver objective, unbiased data, non-invasive insights, and all of this with minimum patient involvement, easy and convenient, like speaking to a virtual assistant like Alexa or Siri. What does that mean regarding a value proposition behind? Vocal biomarker technologies enrich evidence during clinical development and in real-world patient care. We deliver objective, unbiased data, non-invasive insights, and this is the big goal that we're shooting for, disease trajectory predictions for patient risk stratification, and all of this in real-time evidence. So when it comes to the cooperation with Biotronik, we ask ourselves in the beginning, how can non-invasive vocal biomarker technologies enrich the cardiovascular patient care of the future with real-world data and remote patient monitoring? And in the structured program and in the process, at first, we always ask ourselves, is there a huge unmet clinical need? And the unmet clinical need here, when it comes to cardiovascular diseases, is obvious. 5 million Americans are suffering from chronic heart failure. 800,000 new cases are diagnosed each year, and episodes of acute decompensation are requiring 1 million hospitalizations per year alone in the US. The survival rate is 50%. So there is a big unmet clinical need here. Secondly, we always ask ourselves, if there are any pathophysiological changes that are affecting the voice production. And thirdly, we ask ourselves if there are any specific advantages regarding vocal biomarkers compared to the standard of care. And that's the process we went through with Biotronik, and we were on this path since 2022. EVOCAL Health and Biotronik. So in the beginning of every successful cooperation, I think it's always about forming a good team. We integrated the technology, the talent, and all the regulatory aspects that come with it. EVOCAL Health and Biotronik, we started with this collaboration in the beginning of October. And EVOCAL Health has been working in the field of cardiovascular diseases since 2020. At first, we teamed up a highly experienced and interdisciplinary team of Biotronik experts and our EVOCAL Health team. Secondly, we integrated our technology, which can be used via API and a software SDK into Biotronik's architecture. Thirdly, it's all about integrating compliance to ensure highest data protection standards and privacy. And third, and fourth but not least, we provided proof of technology and a due diligence process where we were able to provide a feasibility test of the technology in a respective context of use. Now, you might ask yourself, what's next? And I'm really happy to share that we are on this journey, and I would encourage everyone to follow us and be part of this journey as well. You see here, if you like to connect here are the QR codes to scan, so feel free to reach out. And it was a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Philip, for that quick recap, and also congratulations on the successful project together with Biotronik. We already have a couple of questions here, so I'm directly shooting them away to you. The first one is, how do you differentiate with your solution against competitive solutions that are out there? And how do you leverage voice analytics in particular against those competitors?
Yeah, right. So at first, what is differentiating EVOCAL Health from other companies that are working in this field? I think context of use. We are specialized in the field of cardiovascular and respiratory diseases, which is quite unusual when it comes to vocal biomarker companies. There are not that many in the world. Thirdly, we have developed a platform technology, and for us, it's all about being integratable into existing technologies. Every big pharmaceutical or medtech company has its own tech stack, and for a vocal biomarker company, it's all about integration. It's about integration and partnering up with the best and strongest. Thirdly, there's a technological advantage, and we seek for dynamic voice parameters, not semantic ones, which are more or less language agnostic across different language zones, and there are many others to come, but I'm happy to talk.
Thank you, Philip. Maybe also one question just pouring in from the audience regarding the legal framework, which is, of course, also, especially with those disruptive innovations, very much important. And this is the output of your AI legally considerable as a diagnosis?
Right. That's the big thing here, which every biomarker or digital biomarker companies around the world are currently heading for. There are many types of biomarkers, and when you ask ourselves, there's this best framework of the FDA, and we all learn now how to integrate within this framework. What we're about to do, we see that there is a big need and a big difference when it comes to vocal biomarkers in the patient monitoring aspect. And that's what we're about to do. We're in the approval process there. And when it comes to drug development or study development projects, we are a so-called drug development tool where we do not need 510K approval and these things in the US. But yeah, we're certified, CE-certified medical device so far.
That sounds great, Philip. And of course, also congratulations on the great project together with Biotronik. And of course, we'll be in touch also beyond the program framework, supporting you continuously in your growth. With that being said, Philip, and also to all the other founders and pilot owner teams here involved in this batch, we can conclude the first portion of our pilot showcases. We now have the pleasure to enter the networking break that we have planned here. We will make it a little bit more shorter and precise since we're a bit over time. So we will look at a 15-minute break for you guys. Of course, please make it meaningful, establish some connections, and feel encouraged to share some thoughts about the showcases that you have seen so far. And with that, we also want to hand it over to Olivia, who is always accompanying our events with her great artistry and scribbling skills and really painting the picture of the full event here. So love to tune into that as well, and see you back soon after the break in 15 minutes. Welcome back from the networking break. I hope you all enjoyed a quick, short break, also engaging with the broader audience, with other participants, making some meaningful relationships and connections beyond this event today, but also just tuning into Olivia's scribbling artistry. I think it was truly a pleasure, great creative work there, and love to see the painting, of course, in the end of today's event. With that being said, we will shortly continue also with our pilot showcases. But before we do that, we actually have the chance to listen into a very exciting and interesting keynote presentation by Dr. Axel Heidmüller, who's also the managing director of the Imperial College Health Partners. So very happy to have you, Axel, here with us today. I'm already looking forward to the presentation, so please lead us away.
Very pleased to be with you, though not in person, but my best wishes from London. Thanks for having me. So I will take us back in time to 1986 and a study by the Rockefeller University in New York City on breast and uterine cancer. And if I ask you what your guess was, what the kind of gender ratio is for that study, you would probably say more women than men. And it might surprise you that this study had no women whatsoever. If I take you to 1982 and a famous study called the Multi-Risk Factor Intervention Trial, also known as Mr. Fit, it had 13,000 men and no women. And then maybe the best known study, one of the most longest running studies actually in the world, still running. In 1958, Baltimore longitudinal study of aging. For the first 20 years, it had no women. So why does this matter? But this matters because all these studies claimed, and there are many more, I picked 3, that they look at normal life, normal aging, the risks of normal life to certain diseases. But obviously, if we only study half of the population and include them in these studies, then we get extremely biased results. And no statistical method, even a randomized control trial, can't really make up for that bias. And no, of course, these are old studies, and we have come a long way. And legislation has come in place. It's much harder these days to have these extreme exclusions. And obviously, I picked the gender exclusion. There are all kinds of other exclusions that you can think of. But some of these issues persist. So there's a 2021 cross-sectional study that has looked at these issues again, and it finds that not just actually women are underrepresented in certain areas, particularly oncology, but also actually men are underrepresented in certain studies, trauma, for example, and some other conditions. Now, at this point, and given the title of the talk, you would probably expect me to say, that's fine, because now we have real-world evidence, and that will make everything better. But that's not the sort of key message that I want you to take away. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So real-world evidence is a great addition to the toolkit that we have in research and other spaces, but it's by no means fixing all the kind of issues of biased samples and issues around randomized control trials more generally. It is a complement to those methodologies, and it's probably worth just sort of pausing for one sec and specify a little bit what real-world evidence actually is. Real-world evidence is based on real-world data, as you would expect, and real-world data can come from all kinds of sources. Electronic patient records, many hospitals now have gone paperless and they have digital information. There could be patient-generated, could be claims data. In some cases, and I'm going to give a few examples later, it could be non-health data, your shopping habits, etc. All kinds of things that you add to your healthcare data. That's usually what we call real-world data. And when you bring that together and analyze that, you can have real-world evidence. And the difference really between traditional RCTs and real-world evidence is, for example, the purpose. So RCTs are very much about efficacy of interventions. Real-world evidence is much more about the effectiveness. And again, I'm going to come back to that in a sec. The setting is different. So the RCTs are in an experimental setting, very sterile, very controlled. Real-world evidence, by its very nature, is the real world. It's very messy. So one question I sometimes get asked is, why now, right? Why is suddenly is there such an interest in real-world evidence? And I sometimes compare that to artificial intelligence, because you could argue the same. There's loads of artificial intelligence around at the moment, but if you go back, actually these algorithms have been around for quite a long time, 30, probably, 40 years. But what's different now is that we have a lot more data. We have a lot more data in healthcare and in our general lives, and that data is more accessible. And that makes all the difference. It makes all the difference for AI, but it also makes all the difference for real-world evidence. So we have spent the last decade working in a real-world evidence environment. And what I'm going to do now briefly is sort of talk you through our, if you like, real-world experience of working in this space, starting with the foundations, with some of the early applications, and then I will close with a look into the future and some of the applications that we see coming up. So we were part of the London healthcare ecosystem. We covered 2.5 million patients. And about 10 years ago, our sector of healthcare organizations was very interested in integration. So they wanted to integrate healthcare, which is quite fragmented, even in the NHS and the National Health System. That didn't quite work out, but what did work out was the linking of data. So we have effectively now one of Europe's largest longitudinal linked data sets that connects hospital data, GP data, community data, mental health, social care. All of that is in one big data warehouse and regularly updated. It's not quite real time yet, but it's very close to real time. And in the very early days of this, there were a number of very passionate clinicians, very few of them, that started to use this data in new ways, because the power of this, if you can imagine, is huge. So for the first time, you can actually trace patients through the health economy. So if you have chronic obstructive airways disease, you get treated in a hospital, you get discharged. Usually you go and have community rehab. I think you had a presentation earlier from a company that offers that now in a digital way. But traditionally, you go into the community, you might be under the supervision of a GP. None of this data is visible to all the players at any point in time. Now, if you have longitudinal linked data, you can actually knit together these patient pathways in a completely different way. And so a number of clinicians got very excited about this, particularly around long-term conditions where patients go from a lot of go to a lot of different providers in the system. But it was quite niche, and it stayed quite niche for quite a long time. And I would argue that it's only in the last sort of 3 years that that has accelerated. And there are sort of two drivers for that. So the UK government invested quite heavily in data hubs, and we have become one of UK's real world or the real world evidence data hub. That brought additional funding, but it also brought partnerships with industry, and it enabled us to curate the data in new ways. But maybe the more powerful push really came from COVID, because it's during that period that people started to really understand the power of data. So we were able, for example, to link the results of centralized testing with the local data. So we could plot street by street and house by house where COVID outbreaks happened. And people would then use that, and on the back of that, not just have a conversation about COVID, but potentially about wider health needs. So that's the beginning of population health management. More recently, over the winter, the big vaccination campaign to get people the first, the second, and then the third vaccine. The big problem in London is that we have quite a lot of underserved populations, and finding them is actually quite difficult, but we can find them through case finding in the data that we have. And because it's real world data, there are some patients obviously associated with them. They are still in the system, and you can then identify them, and you can give them healthcare interventions, in this case vaccinations. And it's on the back of that that people suddenly understood actually the power of this and started to use it for population health and otherwise. Now, we have also used it, of course, for more traditional things like clinical trials. We have worked with digital companies, maybe very relevant for some of you in the audience. So, for example, we have used a breast cancer digital app and validated it, are in the process of validating it in the data that we have. We have developed artificial intelligence algorithms for diabetes management with a pharmaceutical company and so on. So there are quite a few traditional things going on in that data as well, as you would expect. And that's fantastic. And as I say, it enables us to do things in a much broader, much more realistic data set. Now, it comes with all kinds of challenges. And the most pressing one is privacy, because unlike a trial where you sign up, you don't necessarily sign up that to your data, your care data being shared with external parties or for research purposes. So we invested quite early in significant engagement with the public in London. So we run a number of deliberation events over many weekends, debating with the public the trade-offs between data sharing and potentially deriving benefits, clinical benefits or otherwise from this data, whether it should be shared with pharmaceutical companies, what the pricing should be, etc. So we invested quite heavily in making this a trusted data environment so that we can actually work and exploit that data collectively with the public, with external partners in the safest way. And I think that's very important when we talk about real world evidence, because the main purpose, as I said, of collecting that data is clinical care. It is not necessarily the research or third-party use of it. So let me spend the last few minutes really looking into the future. And I'm sort of using a kind of related term. I'm calling this the real world environment or ecosystem. So having the data is great, but actually being grounded in a real world care setting where the data links back to care, to clinicians, to patients, to organizations, enables us to do more than just finding out whether things work. And that's particularly potent for digital interventions, because if you have a medication, you bring that into the care system, you put that on a formula, and if you're lucky and have the reimbursement, you get that prescribed. Digital health is much more complex, as you all know. It is about fitting into workflows, it's about interoperability, it's about the whole implementation science that goes with it. And so you don't just need the data, you also actually need the sandbox, if you like, to try this out early on and co-create potentially pathway transformation. And that's really what we're now interested in doing. We've done that during COVID, for example, on home monitoring with a joint partnership between a pharmaceutical company, a digital startup, and our NHS partners. We transformed that pathway, and all these partners brought different bits to the table. And that kind of non-transactional, or at least not predominantly transactional model, is where we think a lot of the future lies. So how can you bring different partners together, not just utilize the data, but really make the most of that kind of real environment that you have, and re-engineer healthcare. And I think that's hugely important for any of the kind of digital applications to be successful. They have to anticipate what it actually takes to bring these things into workflows, into prescribing, the change management that's necessary to make it happen. But there's a second aspect, and that is really about regulators and getting some of the more expensive interventions into the system. So if you think about cell and gene therapies, they're incredibly expensive upfront. You don't really know whether they work. And so value-based pricing, outcome-based payments, there's a huge opportunity to explore that with real-world evidence. So that's pharmacovigilance. We have talked about that for a long time, but we haven't really done it. So these environments enable us to explore that in a much more practical way. So obviously, none of this is without challenge. There are huge issues. How do you keep the privacy up to date and real? How do you keep jeopardy on the table for citizens who, obviously have a huge stake in this? How do you make sure that the information governance is right? So in our case, we had to, get over 400 organizations to share data and sign IG agreements more than once. So there's a huge transactional cost to keep this real. There's something about the scale, how big or small these environments are. So real world evidence is not necessarily the answer to all the kind of ills that we find in clinical research, in trials and so on. But it's certainly, in our experience, a very exciting addition to the tools that we have in our toolbox. A lot of the case studies I mentioned are on our website, so if you want to look them up or get in touch, please do so. I think I'm probably out of time.
Right on time, Axel. Thank you so much for that presentation. Really, really insightful, and also a really impressive mission that you're following with Imperial College Health Partners. One question that came up a little bit through your presentation, through your keynote, for me was, because we also have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience, what would be a tip you as an expert you would give a startup that's currently starting off or is not too mature as of now to really work with real world data and have access to real world data?
Yeah, I mean, basically, as I said, it's crucial that from early on you think about how you fit into a workflow, right? That is, by far the most important thing. We have loads of digital devices sitting in drawers because we can't get them integrated into the workflow. And that pathway transformation, that interoperability is absolutely crucial. So the closer you can get to clinical practice from the beginning, the better, right? And that can be through real world evidence, or it can be through real world environments. And I think there's an interesting sort of tension, right? So the German system with the DiGA has sorted out a reimbursement, but data is actually quite hard to come by. The UK has fantastic data. We haven't quite sorted our reimbursement system in the same way that the DiGA has. So there's sort of two worlds, which are neither of them are perfect. Is perfect, but they offer sort of both opportunities. If you could bring them together in a meaningful way, you would probably have the sort of perfect environment for digital startups.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And fingers crossed that we will see such a development rather sooner than later. But with that, thank you very much, Axel, for that presentation, keynote. Really, really interesting. And for the audience, please, if you want to get in touch, Axel is on the platform, so just feel free to shoot him a message and get in touch.
Good to see you. Thank you.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed that keynote. We, for ourselves, learned a lot, but now we would like to shine the limelight again to our corporate partners and, in essence, to the pilot projects that we have been working on throughout the last 12 weeks. With that, I'd like to welcome the director of the Business Innovation Garage at Novo Nordisk, Dugan, to the stage. They've been a partner with us for a considerable time now, and now really ramping up their digital strategy. What they do with it and in which indications they're venturing, I will leave it up to Matt to give us some insights. Good to see you, Matt. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Fantastic.
Perfect. No, thanks so much, everyone, and thanks for the warm welcome. I think you hit it right there in the beginning. It's a super exciting time for Novo Nordisk and especially specifically our unit. As a company, just quick introduction, Novo Nordisk, we're driving change to defeat diabetes and other serious chronic diseases like obesity, rare bleeding disorders, Alzheimer's, NASH, etc. But that purpose has always been kind of the core of why the company exists. We're coming up on our 100th year as an organization. So, we're starting to get up there in the years. And now in the past month, we've decided to focus on how digital can amplify that purpose, how we can start to leverage digital and data to look at how we operate as a pharma company, all of our internal processes, how do we need to transform? But maybe even more interesting, especially for this audience, we're starting to look at our individual disease areas and building on some of the progress we've made to put things around our products to provide more value for ultimately the patients. And even starting to explore a little bit what new value creation could look like. Are there opportunities where digital can meet some of these needs that aren't necessarily always linked to a molecule or a pharmaceutical therapy product? So that's high level kind of how things are going. And when we look at that ambitious target and this goal of trying to amplify the company's broader purpose, we looked at ourselves, and of course we're doing a lot of things. We're always hiring technical talent and developers to try to build things, but where we really have made the most progress and we see arguably the most potential in the coming years is how we can move even faster by working with partners, working like people in the Creasphere program that allow us and maybe even challenge us as an organization on how fast we can move and how much we can learn from pilots around the world. So for the session today, you'll hear from the other corporate partners, but we just wanted to kind of stop by and mention that we are still exceptionally excited about being a member. We're open to discussions if anyone is doing something interesting around patient activation or disease management in diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease. we have a lot of challenges and big problems that we're trying to take on. So definitely reach out to me or the team through the platform or through other means. And we'd be happy to kind of keep the dialogue going and seeing what we can do together.
Thank you so much, Matt, for that introduction, and really love the ambitious goals that you've set for yourself, and really looking forward to accompany you through the process to make that happen as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys.
Have a good one. All right. So we have a slight shift in the agenda. We would like to directly jump into the first company that is currently working with Roche. But before we do that, maybe just as a quick recap here, we're now going through the startup portion, through the pilot portion again. So please take the chance and use the facilities that we have on that platform, the functionalities. We have the poll interaction where you can indicate if you want to get in touch with the presenting startup, with the Q&A section, which is particular during the pitches. If you have some questions, please feel free to type them in. We can directly see them here and direct them towards the startup. So with that, I'd like to, shift the light a little bit more towards processes, and in particular towards pathways. A pathway is in its essence also a process. But in order to really make it more efficient and yield the best outcome, you really need to get a good understanding of a process. And that's something where Deontics comes into place, and particular worked on their pilot together with Roche to generate a very good understanding of a process, to visualize it, and to optimize it in order to give decision support. With that, I'd like to welcome Vivek to the stage. But you already know the drill. We will have a quick recap about the pilot, 2 minutes video, and afterwards, Vivek, we can't wait to hear your pitch.
Hi, I'm Michelle Lee. I'm the CEO of Deontics. We're a deep tech company solving some of the most complex healthcare challenges to date. We're a spin-out from Oxford University, UCL, and Cancer Research UK. We've built a powerful AI analytics and decision support engine that blends clinical process and reasoning, powered by knowledge and data. Our engine supports a suite of Deontics' own tools and applications, as well as powering third-party software with our API-first philosophy and advanced interoperability and flexibility.
Hey, I'm Vivek Patkar, Chief Medical Officer of Deontics and cancer surgeon by profession. We are excited to work alongside Roche team in this pilot, where we are using Deontics' AI-based analytics engine to deliver value-based healthcare, a holy grail of clinical medicine. Roche team is extremely helpful in making available the valuable resources that are necessary for the success of this project. These are representative datasets, involvement of the end users for their feedback and comments, and Roche project management expertise.
The collaboration with Deontics has been fantastic. Although we have been working in a virtual environment, we were able to build trust and hold each other accountable. That means we have the psychological safety to really raise questions and even bring healthy conflicts into the discussion. So together with their powerful engine and very knowledgeable team, we could move towards our common goals quickly and effectively.
Thank you, Creasphere. Hearing your own voice just before the presentation is not a good idea, but I'm super excited to meet you all. So we are using our digital platform technology and decision engine to support Roche value-based healthcare project here. And this typical use case is in heart failure, but our technology is domain agnostic and can apply to any disease, in particularly any chronic diseases. In heart failure, we are all aware that the problems are high costs and suboptimal care because of a lot of readmissions and unexpected visits to the hospital. So Roche consultant is tasked with designing better pathways to minimize those. What you are saying here is our design tool, and you can see a consultant can configure what are the health outcomes they are interested in and analyze and map the current pathway. That is the first step. And in doing so, they can just use our design tool to drop and drag those shapes which you are seeing. And I think it should work. Yeah. So you could drag and drop those shapes. Those shapes are actually not just shapes, but they basically represent all clinical activities such as tasks, assessments, scans, and engine can understand all the properties such as time, resources, cost. So you can easily design the current flow, and you can then attach all the resources, cost to it. And the most important part here is then you can actually run a patient through the flow. So you can show your customer, you can see at the top, there is a timeline from 0 to 12 months, and the patient is actually traversing in time through this workflow or the pathway, which is their baseline pathway. And as the patient is going ahead, you can see patient has visited, ED, got admitted, and in the right bottom corner, you are not only calculating the outcomes, but also the total cost. Now the next step is how you would redesign it. And there you will use evidence. And when I say evidence, that means the evidence from published trials or RCTs. And this particular trial you can directly load into the tool to create your new pathway, which is basically based on biomarkers, risk stratification, and a different monitoring for different risk categories. So when you actually run the tool, you are basically rescheduling the monitoring, you are introducing a new actually new tools and new assessments in the pathway. So you can simply see here that you can change the pathway, which was the original pathway, and you can design the pathway for the different categories of patients. I'm not going to go through it, but essentially, again, you can run the pathway when completed. And when the patient completes the new pathway, in this case, this is a moderate risk patient, so it will take the middle pathway rather than the top pathway. The tool will itself give you an idea of what the cost and adverse outcome are. But these are running the pathways on individual patients. The most interesting part here is now, if you have got a real world data, that means we call it real world evidence, you can then compare both pathways by running the tool autonomously on the longitudinal data set. So here we take 200 semi-real world data with all the outcomes of interest, and the engine itself runs both the pathways, and you will see in a matter of few seconds, it will calculate all the costs and the outcomes for both the pathways, and then it will generate a report to show the customer that how changing the pathway will actually improve the cost. So you can see the percentage reduction in cost, bed occupancy, length of stay, and all those parameters. Now going next is I would like to, as a clinician, to simplify the tech. So essentially what Deontics is doing is supporting decisions and workflows. That is our engine does. And as an input, it takes evidence, which is real world, as well as the actually published traditional evidence. And it creates a very interactive, dynamic, evidence-based and data-driven pathways, not only for this specific value-based healthcare use case, but because decisions and workflows are core for all healthcare activities, we are also working in all these areas, which includes tumor boards, where you are matching drugs based on the clinical and molecular profile. It could be clinical trial design, where pharma companies are trying to decide what are the best eligibility criteria based on real world data so that they can increase the yield to payers and to actual hospitals and providers. Now this also matches very well with our commercialization roadmap, where we are actually working with all the providers, pharma and payers in this category, and we are actively doing pilots in the yellow zones where I have shown those. And this technology has been developed over a period, a number of years, essentially. Started with late Professor Fox's work with Herb Simon, father of AI, and we are here
at present, where we are mostly working on goal-based decision-making, real-world data analytics, and probabilistic and learning systems, with a lot of evidence we have already published, which is backing not only the clinical validity, but also the technical validity of the tool. Thank you very much. All your questions are welcome, and we'll be happy to see you anytime you want.
Thank you, Vivek, for that really insightful presentation, also for Deontics being part of the program together with Roche. And we already have the first questions pouring in from the audience. And one question that really strikes out is also, how does patient pathway modeling optimize the costs and also resource allocation in a provider setting? Do you have any metrics to quantify the improvement when using Deontics service?
Yeah, the metrics to quantify the improvement is configurable. So in this use case, we are using ED visits to emergency departments, length of stay, and we are taking the cost and resources as per that provider provides. So we have got the we are using a specific use case here where the cost for each medication, the resources, assessments, everything has been fed in. And as the engine runs it in the representative data set, it can check and see what the improvement when they are implementing their basic pathway or original pathway compared with this new pathway, and it gives that output to the user. And you can then change the pathway and see how the changing the timing, number of assessments can actually impact on the cost, and then you will fine tune which is the best pathway for the provider.
Fabulous. Vivek, one question that you were talking a lot about implementation. What's the actual time a customer can come to you and implement your services to have it up and running?
So a meaning for implementation. So the implementation, we also deploy the actual pathways, which is the next step. When you develop a pathway, you can actually implement and deploy the pathway for the provider with the clinical decisions and the clinical activities. So that is one part of implementation. But what we are doing at the moment is we are specifically designing or customizing our engine and platform to suit Roche healthcare use case, where we are in a stage of we just got a date. We are in a stage of running on a data, and then to optimize our tool. So we are there, but we have already got a technology, and we are already deploying those pathways in the clinical setting, in cancer, in cardiology, in metabolic diseases, and diabetes.
Thank you very much. And well, all the best to the developments with Roche together. For the audience, please, as a quick reminder, feel free to reach out to Vivek anytime. You can find him on the platform. We also have dedicated pilot startup booths where you can directly approach Vivek and learn more about the pilot project, but then also, of course, about Deontics.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vivek. All right. Before we now move on to the next startup, to the next pilot Roche is working on, I would like to bring the spotlight back to Roche. First of all, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank Roche for the trust. We were talking a lot about trust and relationships earlier today. So for the trust and the continuous partnership that we have in place for more than 3 years now, and all the great work that we've done together. So thank you very much. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome the Global Head of Roche Information Solutions, Moritz Hartmann, to the stage to let us know a little bit more about, around the strategy behind the pilots, about the broader strategy, and also the insights.
So yes, hello everyone. Good afternoon or good morning. And first of all, my apologies for the delay. In fact, I just moved a few days ago to California, and IT decided a few hours ago to make the user move. And so there was a bit of trouble to get this going. I will actually share my presentation with you, and hopefully this will now work well. I hope you can see my slides. And yeah, we'll jump right in so that I don't delay any further the process here. So let me start really by looking into where have we been starting from. And I think, you know, in the past we had situation where a lot of health solutions, a lot of solutions, where software or digital solutions in healthcare have been very sort of, monolithic and standing for themselves. As you can see here, we have the patient a bit outside of it, and then we had solutions, software solutions that would be made to, make certain machinery work or work better, like you see here with that microscope. Or you would have applications that serve a specific and individual purpose. Now, when we move into today, I think what we're starting to see is really the connection between these solutions. That's a lot related to data that is as well shared across some of these previously individual parts. So we see a lot of integrations between individual systems. There can be devices, but there can be as well different tools. But more importantly, really is where we're going and where we're maybe a little bit in between the today and where we will see the acceleration for tomorrow. And that really is that we will see an increasing and multi-dimensional integration of systems in the healthcare landscape that will actually allow the interoperability between all of these different tools that we put in the service of the patient and healthcare professionals, and that really then create a vision that digital technology and as well to some extent the data of patients can be put into the context and into the service of the patient, and ultimately drive outcomes and drive better outcomes and move healthcare into a more preventative space. Now, bringing this to reality, that's really where we stand at the moment. And we have launched our point of care ecosystem just a few weeks ago in the course of the JP Morgan conference, beginning of the year. And this is where we're now making a true integration happen. And this integration for us, as well of where we're coming from, really starts from a device. So we have a bedside medical device here that you can see on the right side, and that's an example. That's the first device, but there's more devices to follow. So these devices are being used by nurses on the bedside to patients, and we're now actually creating a marketplace of all sorts of applications, and notably applications that are not developed by ourselves, but by partner companies, to then really bring additional functionalities into these tools so that we have on one hand the efficiency of being able to do multiple jobs on the bedside with a single device. At the same time, this device can have all the necessary controls that are needed in a regulated environment. So user authentication, qualification check, and so on can be done by this. Quality controls can be run here, as well as integration actually of the data that is generated into the EMR systems. All of that is enabled by a marketplace that Roche offers. And you just mentioned the multiple years of partnership that we have here together with startup Creasphere. And what is really nice and what I'd like to share, and I'm actually really happy to share, is the fact that this original or this launch package that we have for this device and for this point of care ecosystem includes 3 partners of Creasphere that we have actually gotten to know through this engagement, and that are now part, and where we enable each other's business in a connected way, and where we drive that forward. So that's, you see here the 3 companies' names: SteadySense, Precordior, and S4DX. And I'd like to move to another example where exactly the same is happening, and that's our pre-analytics ecosystem. So this is basically everything that describes the process from when a blood sample is drawn to the time that it arrives in the laboratory and can be actually loaded onto an instrument for the generation of results. Now, this ecosystem again includes partners. So we provide here the backbone, and then there is an open ecosystem that includes partners that some of them are local because there is specific local requirements that need to be built in. Some of them are global players as well. But again, here I'm very happy to share that there's 2 examples of companies that have been going through the startup Creasphere experience that we then actually engaged in long-term contracts with. And what I'd like to point out here is you see a logo that you have seen already on the previous slide, S4DX. So again, back to my intro, I think this shows nicely this interconnectedness and these multiple layers in which partnerships can happen, that we actually bring as well and connect solutions to customers in very different dimensions and in different contexts. But that is exactly this step from the today into the tomorrow, where this interconnectedness really starts to take place. So I just want to wrap up and on a high level, really share the direction that Roche Diagnostics is going with its digital health ambitions. One is really the foundation for us is to deliver medical value on integrated testing solutions. We are certainly coming from the IVD space, but we're clearly expanding as well beyond blood serum derived samples. But this foundational pillar really for us includes not only the digitalization of laboratory services, but also is really connected to our core reason of being, which is to deliver medical value in the interest and in the service of the patient. Now, as I said, we're expanding beyond serum derived results. So enabling confident healthcare decisions, that for us then really includes as well clinical decision support, going beyond any data points that are collected from our instruments. So any form of algorithms and as well other data from different disciplines is being integrated in the green layer. And last but not least, as a company that puts the patient in the center, we definitely want to then as well integrate the entirety of Roche's offering, which includes diagnosis and therapy, into an integration of improving care along the patient journey. And this then also explicitly includes digital biomarkers where the patient might be actually himself or herself included in the generation of data. Here we have good examples of tools where we can actually turn unstructured data that today is generated by physicians in a single instance into longitudinal records where the patient actually helps to have a more structured data set that then again enables better decision making, either for the patient themselves in their home setting, especially in chronic diseases, or then longitudinal data that is available at the physician's office when decisions on therapy adjustment need to be made. This is the vision that we're taking forward. And with that, I really don't want to stand longer in the way of all these pitches that we're seeing here and that are actually showing some great innovation. Roche is here as a partner for this innovation, not just with Creasphere, but also then actually on the longer term. I hope you could see that in this very brief glimpse that I've just given. And with that, I hand back over to the moderators.
Thank you very much, Moritz. It's really always amazing to see what a crisp and clear, well, focus you have on that strategy and also the vision that you're taking there. And especially what's truly amazing for us as well is to see those companies actually that you're working with converting into your product offer. So with that, thank you for being here today. I hope you're settling in well in California and give us a visit in our headquarters. It should be close by.
Thank you.
All right. So now moving back to the startups, we've just heard from Moritz a lot about interconnectivity and also platforms. And kind of the backbone of interconnectivity are Internet of Things devices. There has been a massive rise in those. As per Statista, by the end of this year, we will most certainly reach 42 billion IoT devices, which will continue until 2025, roughly around, 75 billion. So a massive number. That has a massive impact on multiple different industries, but can most certainly also be integrated into a laboratory setting. Often laboratory processes are complex and there needs to be a certain quality assurance to really be safe when it comes to the testing, but also be sure about the results. One of the companies that is working with Roche on that particular project together in the pathology lab is Anagen Systems. So we're now going to see a quick video about the pilot, about the accomplishments, and then I'd like to welcome Stacy, the co-founder and CEO, to the stage to give us some more insights.
Hey, I'm Stacy Roach with Anagen Systems and the Pathology Tracker platform, a laboratory logistics and courier optimization platform, really focused on chain of custody of physical specimens as well as the digital exchange data between the care continuum between the physicians that are ordering laboratory tissue diagnostics and the pathologists who supply the recommendations and ultimately the results process.
Roche is working together with Pathology Tracker, users of Pathology Tracker and users of Ventana Vantage with the goal of defining a solution which combines the features and the strengths of both products and improves that part of the workflow related to the specimen collection, the specimen transportation, until the arrival and the registration of the tissue specimen in the pathology lab.
I think our medical assistants and physicians would tell you that the streamlining of their workflow processes, reduction of the interactions with systems, allowing them to leverage technology to make their jobs easier would be a huge component. Another is just the stability and reliability of the system in that it allows you to or prevents you from running into a lot of the challenges that happen in the workflow processes.
Hey guys, so I believe I have everything shared here. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So I'm here today to talk about our pathology tracker integration with the Ventana Vantage systems. So we're really focused on the pre-analytics phase of tissue diagnostics, which includes things that happen external to the laboratory. So this pilot has been an extremely exciting opportunity to pair the Ventana Vantage system, which helps with the workflow automation within the anatomical pathology lab, helping generate order requests, workflow automation, those kinds of things in the inside the lab, with the pathology tracker platform, which is our platform that we brought together, really focused on everything that happens externally to the lab. So we have implemented solutions around RFID tracking for physical specimen tracking, digitization of a lot of the logistics and logbook systems that are in place, performing a lot of routing and specimen management based on payer mixes within the physician workflows in some of the areas that we focus. But then we're also implementing a ton of things in the notification world, so patient communications, courier communications, and so on and so forth. So our team actually is founded by physicians who work on both ends of the spectrum. So we've got dermatologists and Mohs surgeons who both work in ambulatory as well as hospital care, as well as pathology physicians. Dr. Pat Godby was formerly president of College of American Pathology, but he operates a fairly large tissue-based diagnostics laboratory in the southeast of the U.S. And some of the challenges that they ran into every day was really focused on the communication that happens between the physicians ordering, whether in the hospital or ambulatory setting, as well as the information coming off of the pathologist desk as they're reading microscopes. So one of the pain points we were looking to make an impact on was that everything that we saw, and I'd say everything, a vast majority of the things we saw that were causing issues within our laboratory settings happened before they ever got to the laboratory. We've got sources showing that something along the lines of 1 in every 1,500 specimens in the tissue space get lost. We've got studies showing this particular one showed 6 to 7 specimens being lost per week. Labeling errors are a major component of some of the challenges that we had. And we always just had a frustration, within the technology space itself. Here we are in 2022. We can track a flight from our mobile phone. We can see a pair of shoes being delivered, but something as important as a cancer tissue biopsy, we're missing technology in that space between the lab and the physicians placing those orders. So we came along, we built a solution. We've got platforms that cover both desktop, mobile applications. We're really built with interoperability in mind. We focused really heavily on the patients, the providers, and the pathologists. So every one of the communication platforms, we build the systems to kind of integrate and remove the workflow challenges for each of these people. So the pathologists, they're working in their LIS systems. The providers, they're working in their EHR systems. And then patients are using the devices they're natively used to using. So to date, as we walked into this batch of startups, we had processed around 70,000 cancers that had been protected through this platform. Our metrics are showing that we're getting close rates, timely case close rates, increasing from 70%, below 70% to over 95%. And we have so far eliminated all lost specimens in our PPA flows through the platform. So we're currently working with Roche, and you can see some of the workflow challenges that we're dealing with as we go through the collection process, into fixation, through data entry. We're working to figure out the pain points. What are our challenges here? How do we eliminate those? How do we build these integrations correctly within the Ventana Vantage systems? How do we make sure that those things hit where they need to hit with the least amount of pain for the users? The ROI is easily proving itself out. So right now we've proposed a solution. where we're putting RFID labels and printers into the workflows. We're utilizing our kiosk stations in some of the laboratories that we're working with. So you can see those on the right. We're doing image and data capture through devices, whether digitally being fed to us through the EHRs and LISs or through our standard turnkey solution. And then as we come out the back, we've got quality measures that we can manage. We can manage our TAT. We can look at our specimen audit trails. Chain of custody and courier management become feasible. And currently our next steps are we're working with existing Ventana Vantage customers and pathology tracker customers to kind of build the next phase of this, which is to implement our first pilot, hopefully here very soon. So any questions?
Thank you, Stacy, for your presentation. And of course, we have some questions here already. So the first one being, how do you benchmark against existing solutions in the pathology tracking space? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on your USPs or competitive edge against other solutions.
Yeah, so in the tissue diagnostic space, I think some of the challenges are we're still using paper in a vast majority of our ordering systems. So benchmarking systems is often a little bit humorous because sometimes we're just benchmarking paper. We have gotten in some areas where we do have systems that help us facilitate the resulting process. We are in bidirectional, communication in some areas, especially here in the States. I think dermatology is pretty advanced, but at the end of the day, our process is really, there's very few systems that are monitoring the in-between. So our system kind of sits between LIS and EHRs, which allows us really currently, we haven't had a whole lot of competition there. So we're, trying to benchmark that's a little unique of a conversation.
Well, Stacy, thank you for all those insights. One question also a little bit more from around the organization, ETC, and around the program. Can you give us some insights like on the program, on the interaction with Roche, how you liked it? Is there any highlight that you would like to mention?
Yeah, I think, the interesting thing with us, COVID has obviously been a big challenge in the last few years, watching what we have had, working with plug and play. I think you guys have adapted extremely well. It's allowed us to work, effectively, even through, changes that are going on, obviously the holiday seasons and whatnot. The team at Roche is just phenomenal. Michaela, Matthias, John Werley, those groups. Those guys are, top notch in their fields. It's always really great to bring leaders and thought leaders into these conversations and then be able to walk those into, solving real world problems. So our physicians and our pathologists are challenged. I mean, they're definitely, working very hard to facilitate, the work that they do. And to have someone like Roche and Plug and Play help facilitate conversations that streamline their workflows and help them optimize their day-to-day to make them more efficient, more prosperous, is very powerful, very powerful.
Very happy to hear that. Thank you. And also very excited for the developments we're going to see in that collaboration and can't wait to really spread the news.
Thanks, Maximilian. Thanks, Fabian.
Of course.
Of course. All right, so we've already heard about tracking in the pathology lab, but of course, a specimen is not only around in the pathology lab, it's around throughout the entire clinical pathway. So one company that really goes into that and tries to tackle like the traceability and the quality assurance is Tag-N-Trac. With that, I'd like to welcome Venu to the stage. But first of all, congratulations on your Series A. Very well deserved. And I think it just purely speaks for the quality of the platform and really for the mission that you're following. but you know the drill already. We will have a quick video, and then Vino, the stage is all yours.
Hello everyone, this is Venu Gutlapalli, CEO and co-founder of Tag-N-Trac. We are San Diego-based IoT company, and we're focused on developing IoT solutions for pharma supply chain logistics lifecycle. The company has an innovative SaaS platform that offers complete real-time visibility for end-to-end global supply chain. The solution combines low-cost printable hardware sensors connected to a SaaS platform that helps the shippers, the logistic providers, and the pharma manufacturers to track the status, the condition monitoring from first mile to the last mile.
Companies on the market that bring the right technology and try to achieve the goal in order to fill the gap of a need at Roche, somehow to help customer and to bring result for the benefit of the customer.
We started working with Roche on mainly temperature logging device that can log the consumables that get delivered to a diagnostic machine and provide a highly accurate temperature differences that the product went through the shipments. How can we scale our solution is mainly we wanted to start with consumables as a temperature logger, but the same product we want to see if we can use it as a smart label for other primary packaging and secondary packaging tracking end to end.
Hi Venu, it's
Hello.
a pleasure to have you here, and it's a pleasure to have you in the past 3 months in the program. Venu, if you can share your presentation, that would be great also for the audience to see. And of course,
Yes.
we're already very much excited for your presentation at hand.
All right, let me share. Do you guys see my presentation?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Venu.
All right, so should I start? Yeah, so this is Venu. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tag-N-Trac. As an introduction, we are based out of San Diego, and what we're focused mainly is to solve this supply chain visibility and traceability from end to end. If you look at the current landscape, the business desire of any pharmaceutical is to get the real-time monitoring of their products going from their R&D centers from their manufacturing centers into the distribution, into the healthcare, or to the direct to patient. The business desire is to have this end-to-end visibility and then have a good analytical control dashboard, a good real-time location update, so where they know at any given point of time where their products are. Then they can make decisions on their supply chain, whether to speed up the manufacturing or reduce the manufacturing to make it more just in time pharma. But the current landscape is that the pharma companies only have the real-time visibility and the temperature monitoring till the product is within their facilities. Once it leaves the facilities, then it's in a different B2B, a third-party logistic company is handling the product, then it goes to a distributor. So when that happens, we currently doesn't have systems that can track this end-to-end. The data itself is high precision in the beginning, then it becomes to a low precision, then it becomes unknown. So what we're trying to transform is catch this traceability and monitoring in the beginning of the product origination. So any pharmaceutical product, during the manufacturing itself, currently they print a passive traceability code on it based on a GS1 standard. What we want to do is we want to take that passive label and then we integrate an intelligent sensor plus a communication device into the label itself. And now that label is not only tracking the temperature conditions, the location, what are the type of issues it's going through, but it also giving every handoff insight into your ERP. So now you can manage a better your end-to-end supply chain visibility. So that's what we're trying to solve. And this is a typical pharmaceutical supply chain implementation, and Tag-N-Trac is the green layer where we fit in. We provide two types of data. We do the sensing stream, which is more of a context-based data, which is giving any given point of time where the product is, what is its state is, and how many of that products are existing in the supply chain. The trace stream is more of analytics to figure out what is the chain of custody, where did it go from the GMP facility into a distribution chain, who is the 3PL that took the product to deliver, which hospitals they got delivered to, or which patient they got delivered to. So that is where the traceability come into picture. So we're kind of combining the existing fragmented 2-3 platforms that the pharma is using and collapse it into a single platform. So you don't need to actually do a lot of software integration and have a cost overruns. So how do we do it? So we develop a full stack platform, as I said. We also in-house design all the wireless tracking devices. Currently, we have this portfolio of devices that we're deploying with several pharma companies, including the top 3. We're doing pilots right now to track some of their products. Basically, we have smart labels. These are single use, any package, primary package, secondary package, even at a pallet level, you can put the smart sense labels and then you get the trackability end to end. We have the reusable tag that if you have a supply chain where you could recover the device, then you can use the reusable. If it is a B2B play where you cannot recover the device, then it's a single use, put the label on, you're getting the data back, and the label can be disposed of at the end of the cycle. And these labels can last anywhere from 3 months to a year or 2 years based on the type of application that we want to do. And the temperature logger is where we're working with Roche currently. So the Roche is trying to solve this temperature accuracy for the reagents that connects to a diagnostic machines at the hospitals or other clinical laboratories. And they needed these reagents to have a temperature measurement when it goes through the supply chain. Very accurate, 0.3 degree accuracy that they wanted to measure. So we developed a logger that can do this readings. So we read every 15 minutes, a 0.5 degree, 0.3 degree accuracy. And it has a shelf life of 1 year. And we can record through the life of that reagent what type of temperature changes it went through. So when it attached to the diagnostic machine, it can then transfer that data to the machine so the machine can apply the right processes for it. So the goal for us is that we want to use this platform to solve the end-to-end supply chain. So the bottom is where you can see a typical pharma supply chain, how much data that we have to generate to be a regulatory compliant in any country like Europe or in US and other Asian countries. So what we are doing is we're taking that supply chain and the current process, and then we're just adding a intelligent layer on top with the sensors. So these labels will have an integrated sensors, and you don't need to have a vision scan of these products at every handoff because they're cloud connected through a a T-Mobile network or a Vodafone network, this data is getting uploaded into the cloud as they are going through the supply chain, whether it's a B2B or direct to patient, any type of use case based on what the pharma is trying to track. We can then provide the solution, whether it's a vial level tracking, primary packaging, secondary packaging, all the way to the pallet level. We can give you the data in real time and at the lowest cost. So our philosophy is to, just because it's a pharma product, we don't need to make the whole solution expensive. Our goal is to actually bring the cost disruption into this market. And this is a typical data flow of how currently it is done and what exactly we need to change. So a typical supply chain, what you do is you have primary packaging, you print a barcode, it's a JITN code, then you move it to a secondary packaging where you put multiple primary packages into that, and then you print another secondary JITN code, then you have a pallet built on top with an SSCC code for shipment. Now, the only change that we will bring in is the same label is taking the JITN code, but it's also taking a sensor code that the camera will read it. Once the camera reads it, then we know which asset or which pharma product is mapped to which sensor. And once that sensor is activated, then you don't need to scan the barcode again, because these sensors are compatible with your smartphone and deployed 5G networks. The data can now be seamlessly transferred into a centralized database. And from there, you can run all sorts of analytics, traceability, blockchain, whatever you wanted to do with the data. So if you look at the current fragmented implementation, you're probably running, any pharma probably is running like 3 platforms, one for condition monitoring, one for 3PL management, other for traceability. And with the Tag-N-Trac, the goal is to merge these. And then if you wanted to implement a blockchain type supply chain ledger system, we could integrate that and make it a more shareable data between B2B. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And this is a typical logger plus label functionality. So they have around, if it's a Bluetooth type wireless communication, we have around 30 to 100 meter range. If it is a cellular label, then we have around a 50 kilometer range. And that's where the data gets transferred to a cellular network into the cloud. And then we do all the analytics and give you a full end-to-end visibility. So we are data-centric, full pharma compliant. So we have full CFR compliance, GMP 5.0 compliance, and the quality management system is putting in place. So, and then we're very low cost, and we provide outstanding value for unit economics from the existing solutions in the market. And we're looking for working with Roche to expand this solution from the current use case. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I would open now to questions.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Venu. We already have a question here. And the question is from Lindsay. Can this technology be extended to pharmacy-generated patient data?
Yes, actually, the platform itself is very agnostic to where you want to apply this. So we already have some pilots in San Diego for Palomar Hospital. We're actually trying to do a full patient monitoring, patient care, that type of like asset monitoring and their own end, like a pharma temperature monitoring type use cases. So it can be applied for clinical trials, your patient to delivery to patient in hospitals. So very, very scalable platform.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Venu. As a quick reminder for the audience, please use the Q&A section of the platform. Also, if you want to get in touch with Venu or all the other startups, we have a poll section as well. So always feel free to reach out to the entrepreneurs directly, to Venu directly, or indicate in the poll section for us to connect with you. So Venu, thank you very much for your time today, and have a great rest of your day, and see you later at the network.
All right.
All right. So we're already at the last company of today, and we've been talking a lot around connected world, a lot around data creation, but there's a massive amount of data out there. So everything is producing data, and by today, Max, what do you think? How much data do we have?
It's of course a super challenging question, right? But I would assume somewhere in the zettabyte range, but I can't put a specific number on it, unfortunately. Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good guess. It's 44 zettabytes by the end of 2022. Zettabytes, just to put it into perspective, is 10 to the power 12 gigabytes. So it's a massive amount of data, but the data at that stage is not worth that much unless you can generate insights from it. How you do that typically is through deep learning algorithms, etc. But in order to do so, you need to label that data. And the quality of the artificial intelligence goes directly hand in hand with the quality of labeling. And that's something Labelbox, our next startup, is addressing. How they do it and what they've been working on together with Roche. We will hear everything about that from Mark. But first of all, we're going to see that 2 minutes video.
Hi everyone, this is Mark from Labelbox, the leading training data platform. We empower data scientists and ML engineers by allowing them to effectively and efficiently label and prepare their training data in order to build highly effective and high-performing AI models in production.
My name is Fabian Schmich. I'm a principal scientist in period informatics, and I work on machine learning projects to support the drug development process in PRED. For example, we try to detect small objects such as a specific cell type or even subcellular characteristics in large imaging datasets. One of the major challenges we're facing is that while we generate a lot of image data in high throughput, supervised machine learning models need labels such as the location or the type of an object in order to train algorithms to detect these automatically in the future. Collecting high-quality labels is a very time-consuming, expensive, and complex undertaking, and from what we've experienced, typically is a bottleneck in our machine learning projects. And that's exactly where Labelbox comes in. In our Creasphere partnership, we aim to build an active learning, human-in-the-loop-based annotation workflow connecting the Labelbox platform and our internal infrastructure, including our data storage systems and machine learning model development and deployment infrastructure. This will allow us to systematically and in a time-efficient manner collect and review high-quality labels at scale.
Now, over the past few weeks, we've had the privilege to partner and work with Roche to explore pathology use cases in more depth than ever before. This has allowed us to develop our platform further, gain feedback from an industry leader in order to iterate on our product, iterate on our offering, and really cement our position and our vision for innovation within the healthcare space. And this program has given us the opportunity to see a live industry use case and start working together with our industry partner to solve it, which has allowed us to gain experience and allowed us to understand how we can best serve and more effectively deliver within the healthcare space and to healthcare clients like Roche. Okay, thank you very much. As you can see, same person, different background, same t-shirt, same logo. Nice to meet you all today. I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes discussing the pilot with Roche, what we've learned as a company, and what we've learned throughout this whole process as well. So as Fabian alluded to, we see the rise of data that's being created across all organizations. But a key point that we're seeing more and more is that we're seeing enterprise data become unstructured, meaning that text, images, video, audio, data types are becoming more and more popular for enterprises, especially in healthcare. That means that extracting value from that data can be extremely valuable to businesses. And the fact that we're seeing changes, as mentioned before, in IoT, in computer vision, in the way we acquire our data, makes this analysis more and more relevant to businesses in all industries. Now, AI and ML has been a great journey. We've seen that algorithms have now been to a point where they are free. We can use open source tools to create AI models very fast and very effectively. We've also seen that the infrastructure to house these algorithms, and to house all this newly collected data, has been improved as well. We've seen some great improvements now, and having a cloud storage is something that is now more and more popular. What we are seeing now is that we've seen progress in the algorithms, we've seen progress in the infrastructure. We need to work on the proprietary data. We need to work on helping enterprises build their training data that they can feed AI algorithms with. As Fabian mentioned in the intro, a model is only as good as the data that it's trained on. And we set out to be the world's leading training data platform, giving people flexibility in the way they label their data, but also making sure that it's intuitive and accurate. And Labelbox started off as an annotation platform, but we quickly set out to fulfill our mission, which was to become a platform that allows the supervision across the whole AI development lifecycle. So as Fabian mentioned, we look to annotate the data, get the data ready to train your first AI model. Once that model is in production, once that model is running, we offer the tools to diagnose that model for active learning, to understand, hey, where is my model good and where is my model failing at? Where are the edge cases? Where are the outliers? What classes and what objects are my models good at detecting and what are they not good at detecting? Through that, we can prioritize the data to train our model in the next iteration phase, fulfilling that active learning iterative cycle that you see on screen now. Now, as mentioned, any AI system and any AI environment is built on data engines. And those data engines here are iterative, from the data storage to the training data creation that sits on that data storage, to the models that you use across your organization to derive business value. So people here use this term called data engine. It was a term that was quoted by Tesla, and it's something that the industry has adopted to show that an engine, these engines are put together, constructed together, and iterative in their nature. And now we discuss how we decided to work with Roche. As was mentioned in the video, we looked at cell analysis through Labelbox. The key challenges was that this process was inherently difficult, was fragmented, and we were struggling to annotate the images. The annotations were scarce, and the predictive modeling required a lot of data. So we needed the models, the right models, with the right volumes of data and the right accurate label data. Labelbox came in as an efficient alternative. Not only did we allow Roche to label data intuitively, prioritize data, manage your training data in an interesting, transparent way, we offered Roche a command center for which they can manage their training data, but also manage their models in production through active learning, to retrain models on particular classes, to understand their models, where their models are failing intuitively, and offering Roche the iterative lifecycle and the incorporation of this platform within their AI development team and AI development tools. An interesting part is that we started off with this use case, but as we were discussing with Roche and as the pilot progressed, we moved on to another use case with another team in Roche. We found out that there was a team in Roche that was looking at annotating text. So moving from cell images to text, it was really interesting to see how our tool could be applied in a different use case with the same company. And here we saw that it was actually public medical research that needed to be annotated to train models to sift through the vast volumes of medical research to find key trends such as symptoms, to find key trends such as causes, etc., and really advance the way we look at research and the way we sift through and analyze and organize our research. Now, the value we delivered is an efficient interface for data scientists to interact with lab experts in a one platform that sits across the whole organization, that offers the visibility for technical and non-technical folks, that can be used for different teams in an organized way. And this platform offers higher throughput. So not only can you analyze and label more data, but that means that your predictive modeling and your time to model prediction is much faster. And that's key because we are shortening the cycles between the iterations that we need to analyze unstructured data within Roche, both on a text and on an image basis. And what that does is that reduces the overall development time, and therefore the research conducted can be done more effectively and more efficiently, and we can move on to new things. So this program was key for us to really understand how such a big organization like Roche uses AI and will use our platform. But it was also made possible with the Creasphere folks here for giving us such a comprehensive program and comprehensive organization that tied us quite nicely with our industrial partner. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. And of course, we want to echo those words back to you as well. We love to see the spirit that you brought also into the program and how you have also expanded within Roche your reach. This is, of course, what we love to see. So thank you for that, Mark, and we will be in touch for sure.
Thank you.
All right. And Mark, also maybe to quickly sum it up here, congratulations. We've just heard the news that you had a very successful Series D. We can't wait for you to hit that magical billion-dollar valuation. And I think it's rather sooner than later.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Have a good one. All right. So now that's it. We've seen 7 amazing startups working with 2 of our corporate partners in depth together. We've also seen with the last one, even a project that was expanded within the pilot phase to another one. Now, thinking about those 7 companies, we'd like to give you also the opportunity to vote which company you like best, which pitch you like best, but also which pilot project you like best. For that, please go to the poll section on the right-hand side of your screen and just indicate and select one out of those 7 companies which you like best. We're now giving you about 2 minutes to do that, and then we're back to announce the winner.
Drum roll. No, we're not on it. So with the drum roll now, we're excited to announce the winner of today's startup pitches. Super excited to name actually the company Labelbox as the winner of today's event. And this is for you guys. Of course, also the cherry on top for your successful fundraising and the great pitch. Very happy to have you in the program, but also to all the other startups out there, super grateful to have you here with us in our Startup Creasphere family. And with that, we will hand it over to Olivia for looking at the final Mona Lisa of today's event. Olivia, please show us some illustrations.
Scribbling. Thank you so much, Olivia, for preparing this. And we are happy to share this with you afterwards on our social media channels. So that was a packed agenda. And yeah, thank you for joining us today. And a big shout out to the team, to the moderators here, Fabian and Max, who kept the energy up during this virtual event, and also to the rest of the team for preparing this event, Christina for the program, Jiskia for the great support here, and our AV system team as well. So thank you very much. Big shout out to you, to the Startup Creasphere team again. Thank you. So please, this wasn't our last event. The next is actually right around the corner. So we would like to share again with you how you can stay in touch with us. On the one hand side, we have our great co-working space here in Munich, where you can join us as a startup, to join us here in the office and community. But also for Startup Creasphere, you can join us here. You can join us through social media, but also on our homepage, where you will be also always updated with the latest trend reports that we're conducting here in our team, some stories about the pilots, our partners and startups from the program, as well as from our portfolio. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. This is also the end of our winter summit here in Munich. Over the past 3 days, we have learned a lot, we have shared, we have been connecting. Thank you for your participation, your curiosity, your questions, and also big shout out again to our great team here on the ground for making the virtual setup as fun as it can be. So with that being said, have a lovely evening again, and all the best from Munich, and see you soon. Thank you.